July 20th, 1969. Out of this world. The Major escorted me to the map room and he stretched as he placed his finger in the top left corner of the large wall map. I was proud to be a long-range reconnaissance patrol leader, but the words long range suddenly took on a whole new meaning. The Major begins to explain what was already painfully obvious. Our next mission would take us out of the range of the more precise artillery units, and helicopters would not be able to reach us in less than 15 minutes. With only 4 men on the team, our safety was mainly in our stealthiness. As long as the enemy was not aware of our presence, we could blend into the jungle with our camouflage uniforms. If we were discovered, artillery would be our first defense. We would direct the guns to fire close to our position until we could escape or get help. Knowing we could only be reached with the 175 millimeter guns was like learning that William Tell would attempt to remove the apple with a shotgun rather than an arrow. In a worst case scenario, being afraid of our own artillery, we'd most likely try to defend ourselves. Even with all the ammo we carried, it would be unlikely that we could sustain a shooting battle for more than 10 minutes. An unspoken fact of life understood by all LRRPs. If help were not received quickly, it probably would not be necessary at all. The words helicopter support in 15 minutes were interpreted as, "You're on your own." The goal of the mission was to look for new activity in the area. It was known that the area in the past had been used by the NVA as a field hospital. For 4 days we wandered around the area. The jungle had reclaimed the area where the hospital had been. We found tracks that we speculated belonged to an elephant. I had never seen an elephant in Vietnam, but I'd heard that the NVA sometimes used elephants to pack supplies into South Vietnam. Just after dark, we heard a quick burst of automatic gunfire in the distance. We did not feel threatened, but since we were supposed to be the only friendlies in the area, I radioed in and reported the incident. I was told to fire a few artillery rounds in the direction of the gunfire. I called in the coordinates and the big guns responded to the rifle fire. After things settled down, we went into our normal night routine of taking turns sitting up for 1 hour and sleeping for 3 hours. At night, we were to check in every hour. I made my radio check and I recognized the voice on the other end of the radio. A fellow LRRP who was stuck between missions having to monitor the radio at night. After I checked in, he said, "They've landed, and just as they expected, it was made out of cheese." I turned the radio off and pondered the message. We often sent cryptic messages over the radio along with our official business, just to confuse the enemy in case they should be listening. Since this radio operator had helped with my war on rats, I concluded this was his way of telling me more rats had landed in our traps lured by the cheese we'd picked up in the mess hall. Feeling the world had been made a better place, I passed the watch duty to the next man. A few minutes later, he woke me up and whispered, "Sarge, they just told me on the radio we've landed a man on the moon." Back in the world, I had watched with great interest as our astronauts circled the moon the previous Christmas, but I had no idea this mission had been launched. I sat up and looked at the bright moon, trying to figure out if it should look different. I remember thinking, how about that? Somebody's further from the world than us.